Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Once again, I'm here with the wonderful, the incredible, the absolutely beautiful Laura Eisenhower. And we have quite the show for you today. And what our topic is, we're going to be talking about rising above the battle of the sexes. And that's the theme that I came up with for this month. And I posted a blog. I'm going to read the first paragraph. Let's face it, conflict makes money. That is money for the few who create the conflict and the minions who carry out the protocols. That is true for every war created, including the battle of the sexes, the battle between men and women. So we're hoping to shine some light. So how are you doing, Laura?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Just can't believe all these energies, the positive energies around us right now. And I'm noticing people are moving forward in the macro and the micro. People are moving forward individually, but we're seeing things happen. The Durham report just came out this week, and it named so many people and organizations that all lied about the Russian hoax, and all kinds of things are starting to surface. And I'm not making this as a political statement. People can do what they want that way, but what I'm looking for is the truth. That's what I want to align to. So I was quite impressed that that actually did surface.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So I think they're going to be moving on more things, and that's to me is a signal for us to move ahead. So I was going to ask you, what's your interpretation or your understanding of the battle between the men and the women? Who benefits from that?
I don't think anybody benefits from any kind of battle. I mean, in order for us to move forward as a humanity, we have to work together. We have to harmonize. Integration of polarity within ourselves is what activates our DNA. And I feel the battle is the programmings that have been passed down generation to generation. The patriarchal agenda that's connected to the negative alien agenda has just created a major imbalance. And so when we see how the timelines have been, how we've been born into just like world wars, or men being taught not to cry, or the way religions have structured things with all male priests, and women being burnt at the stake if they have abilities that connect with like Mother Earth. I mean, we have a really dark history to unpack, and a lot of programmings and a lot of indoctrination and a lot of things that have been modeled to us that we end up battling. But we're battling the programmings. What about doing that work, deprogramming, getting back to our soul and Mother Earth, and like the true essence of the inner divine masculine and feminine, and what that healing journey is all about, so that we can begin to relate to each other on a much, much deeper level and honor one another in a way that is not like what we were taught or conditioned to like behave as. Men were taught not to cry, to go out and fight wars, or to be the authority on a spiritual level, which is insane, right? Women, have been just silenced and exiled and just demonized as well. And but there's times in history that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. And then there's things in the power structures where we see a lot of women in power, but that's very much the dark mother reversal energy. So we have to like look at it all, look at ourselves, and and some are going to want to be in the inverted, but the ones willing to come back to like the true template, which is not like how it should look and how it should be. It's what does it mean for you to be true to yourself as you heal and process through all these ancestral patterns, all these programmings, all these dark cycles of history, to get back to just your own soul center, so that you can feel like a sovereign being that is balanced within yourself. The electromagnetic spectrum of frequency, the electric and magnetic, the masculine and feminine within ourselves, so that we can remove, the frequency fences and the seals that have prevented us from accessing the multidimensional nature of all that we are and the higher harmonic universes. And all these different psyops and programmings throughout time has limited us and kept us in this imbalance, and they completely feed on it. And that's why they have so much control over humanity, I feel.
And they do. And it's interesting because, again, with this topic, I started wondering when all this was happening. And we had the sexual revolution in the 60s, and we had, the love. I think Woodstock was put on by CIA because it was so big and so powerful, because they
And
wanted
there's so
everybody
many
doing
cults
drugs.
coming out of that.
So it's interesting because what I was talking about, I came across William Cooper, a short video of him, and then he was talking about Gloria Steinem, how she was the CIA asset. And then they posted another video of her saying she was a CIA asset. And she was the one who brought in the feminism movement. and in the 60s, and sure, equal rights for women, equal pay, but she wanted everybody out there having sex like a man as well. So I think she was there to destroy feminine energy. And so I want to talk a little bit about the women that are doing this. I did a video a week or so ago with a woman from Parentainment and Sarah Rippert and Adriana Trevino, and we were talking about the universities, and 2 universities in Canada back in 2013 were pro-rape chanting minors in Frosh Week. So the older students were getting the younger students to do it. So what I think the battle we're in is between empaths and narcissists. You either have heart or you don't. So all of these people, their eyes would like light up for some of them. And I think the older students start looking to see who's offside. I think that's how all these organizations hire for people. They want to know who gets the game and who's willing to play the game to get ahead. And some of us just don't get it at all, right? So that's what I think is going on. But this Gloria Steinem, so back in the 60s, they had the bra burning, and it was a sexual revolution. And then now what do we got? We've got the perverted revolution with all this LB nonsense going on and what they're teaching the kids, right? So there seems to be a push to destroy human sexuality, but that's the destruction between the male and the female energies as you're talking about. But they want us all fighting. They want women thinking we're all been victimized by the men. Men, some of them don't know whether to pass wind or wind their watch right now because they keep getting told that they're the abusers. But who's teaching them that? The women in the universities. And I think a lot of those humanities programs just need to be scrapped and start over. And I think it was Derek Johnson. He was on, I can't remember what interview he did. He said they're cleaning out the tunnels under the universities now. So it's not like we think that our education institutions are all wonderful, not even close. And it's the humanities that they seem to have really flipped on its head, because why can't we get love right? Why is there so much divorce? So when we say who benefits, the people, real estate can benefit because now you need 2 houses. Car industry, you need 2 cars, 2 sets of furniture, 2 sets of clothes. But what I think is happening when we look at what's happening with that thing that goes into the arm, it's affecting what says the heart, which is the higher chakras. So it's affecting the gateway. So I look at this from a different kind of energetic tone. So I look and see who's responsible for this. So our premier in Ontario, he got elected in 2018 because he was going to repeal and look at the sex ed. He didn't do a thing. November of 2022, he brought in the first provincially funded drag queen, I shouldn't have said that word, but the story hour. He just made it now that you can be charged up to $26,000 and do jail time if you protest outside one. There's only one reason he would do that. He's into kids. And we got to start asking more questions. So I'm looking at the structure as the macro around us, and then seeing how it happens. And I agree wholeheartedly. We all have to go in and do the cleaning up. We've got to go in and look and see why we think what we think, how we got programmed, what beliefs we have, which ones we're afraid to let go of. I'll give an example. Some people might be afraid to let go of a cultural program because their family might ostracize them. So that's where, so they're afraid to let those things go. I worked with a woman once. She was in an arranged marriage. She said she was miserable. She was overweight. She had 2 kids. Her and her husband, they did not connect. And she decided they were not leaving that marriage. She said to him, then let's make the best of this. And now they're in love with each other. It gave them a chance to fall in love. I'm not endorsing arranged marriages. She had choices. She wasn't going to let go of her whole family. So they decided they were going to make a go of it. And that's their choice because nobody forced them to do it other than the marriage. So I'm just trying to use different examples of how we're looking at all these things, because I think a lot of the feminist movement, I can't find 2 feminists that agree what a definition of a feminist is. So then why are we using the label? Why can't we use it that we're men and women, we're human? And this is where I'm finding it's really difficult. So it's the same as a Christian. The US alone has 3,700 sects of Christianity. They can't even agree on what it means to be a Christian. So people are using these labels, and it's just part of the programming. Are you a good person inside? Do you know the difference between right and wrong? Do you harm others to get ahead or not? Like, this is kind of the humanity that I'm hoping that we can come into and start looking to see who's of pure heart and soul. And we're going to know if the words and the walk and talk aren't going to match, right? So when we were doing this interview, the one woman asked me, she said, there's one religion where it was all male, very, you're shamed and blamed from an early age. And she said, and there's another one that makes you look like you're just wonderful and you don't want to look at anything negative. And I said, well, the first one you're talking about is Catholicism. So a lot of those feelings of shame we've had them from birth because that was the program we were born into. And then I said, the next one is the New Age movement. So Gloria Steinem, the CIA's in the universities. And I was thinking back to a black magician in the UK. He's a black magician and he was working in the three-letter agencies. He wrote a book. The government stole his manuscript and tried to kill him. So he decided to come out and say how they do all the black magic. I've watched like 140 hours of this guy. He said the New Age movement was created by Mossad, MI5, MI6, and CIA. So we have so much programming to undo from ourselves and still learn how to read our energy in our own body so we can ask ourselves, is this true? Is this true? And I do agree with you with the consciousness that's coming on the planet. We are waking up whether we're ready or not. Like it's already happening. People are starting to see other dimensions. They're seeing things that don't make sense. So we're starting to wake up. So this is going to be really an interesting time, but I figure we're in like a video game. You got to know where the rewards are and where the traps are, the booby traps are. It's kind of what I'm seeing as we're going through right now. So it's interesting because I like watching and listening to everybody's opinion. I don't put anybody down. I'm not about that at all, but I just listen and say, does that make sense for me? Is that right or wrong? And I was saying earlier, Michael Tazarian, David Whitehead, and I think the other fellow's name is Ryan. They were talking, did a video. I don't know when they did it, but I saw it last night. And they're saying the top of the demonics is female. I've known that for a long time because I know I work with the demons. The top 5 demons are females. I'm not demonizing us because the pure of heart, they've been hurt just as much as anybody else, right? But I'm not demonizing us. But we have to look at this. And Field McConnell, are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he did a list. Abel Danger did a list of female operatives in high places. 94 of them, of these women, the H word is on there. Sarah Ferguson is on there. These are all the handlers of the prime ministers and the presidents. So it's just an interesting take. And I'm not taking the blame for this. I don't believe you can blame the women or anything like that, but we have to see what behavior is right side and what's behavior is wrong side. It's kind of what
that's a whole nother inverted world. I mean, women are powerful, and that Illuminati or anything that's based in inversions or vampirism or MK Ultra or SRA. I mean, that's a completely different thing, right? And they're weaponizing humans. They're using the power of, women. It's very much the Baphomet and how that originates with the Akamoth and the exploded planets and you just, I mean, it's just, it goes so deep.
There's a lot of moving parts.
That's a whole other world compared to just the development of like the human when they're born and their soul development and all the indoctrination that is being cast upon our children and what's been passed down generation to generation through just, what a religious background is, something traditional, cultural, and just societal, right?
Totally.
So yeah, the 60s and 70s, as much as it was about all this freedom, there were so many cults. There were so many different cults that emerged out of it that were so manipulative. And the thing is, it's just like people have lost the ability to think for themselves. People are very much consumed by the outer world and the outer matrix that literally has infiltrated everything. The hippie movement, the New Age movement, the feminism, Black Lives Matter, all of it, everything. And so if we don't step back and begin to just really do the clearing work on ourselves and get true to ourselves and like understand, like, which Mother Earth will really, really help us with, that to me, goes beyond feminism. It goes beyond like the realm of personality and programs, because everybody's battling their programmings and their ancestral wounds and their traumas and how the psyops and all the different things that stream through the media and the educational system are targeting all those wounds and traumas in order to completely pit us against each other. The root races are at war with each other when we're supposed to integrate to switch on our dormant DNA and rebuild the 12-strand tree of life template, which is connected to the planetary grid network of Mother Earth. So, if we can look at like the feminine energy is connected to Mother Earth, earth, air, fire, water, ether, and, the father principle, the rod and staff, and the electric energy of the father energy, and how that connects with, what's in our DNA template, why Mother Earth became Mother Earth, and what this ascension planet is all about, how that links with the integration of the masculine and feminine, the father being like the guardian protector, that is supposed to embrace his inner feminine. I mean, the true teachings of the Essenes and Yeshua were all about the laws of the mother. Religion completely changed and distorted everything that we've, been born with genetic damage and belief systems that we end up forming relationships with and finding that, like you said, empathic narcissist sort of like, or predator victim, sexual misery programs, all these things have been installed in the planetary grid network, in ethereal implants, and with other people, like implants that they get from abductions, and then how that links to the dark technologies and what comes through the media, what comes through our phones, what comes through like the 5G, and people literally are not thinking for themselves. They're still in the web. If we're in the soul matrix, if we're soul centered, we can begin to attract soul mates that, when triggers come up, when programmings come up, you can like be transparent enough to be like, wait a second, is that really coming from me? What is this belief system? Because the thing is, like with the transgender stuff, do you really think God and Divine Mother and your own soul screwed up when it chose this body that you were born into? Do you really think the surgeon is the one that has the answers, or society has the answers, that you should be so confused that before you hit puberty, you should change your sex? What about the soul development? If you don't like the body you were born into, maybe you don't like the programming that you were born into, and maybe deprogram so that you can occupy that vessel and be a true representation of yourself within that vessel. If you don't like the alpha male and like the typical, like what we've been fed a male should be, and you're in a male body, you don't need to cut off your organs. Why don't you just stand strong and be like, you know what? I embrace my inner feminine. I'm a nurturer. I love to wear dresses, but you don't need to cut off your genitals before puberty.
So hang on.
Buy into indoctrination. I mean, this is the madness of where this is all going is beyond.
But it's not the children doing it.
This should be waking people up. If this doesn't wake people up, I don't know what.
Nora, it's not the children doing it. It's the adults doing it to the children and convincing them.
I'm not saying the children are doing it.
No, but we focus on the children doing it.
They're being encouraged to do it. Look at, there's plenty of cases. The children are being taken away from their parents. They're being indoctrinated. They're making choices. Like, a kid doesn't have a driver's license. A kid can't even like buy groceries or choose what they're going to eat for dinner. But yet there are laws being put in place that are separating parents from their children when they're making these decisions because they feel more like a boy or more like a girl. And that's happening in Canada. It's happening all over the world, that these kind of stories are taking away parents' rights.
Okay, so can we hang on just for a second there? Look at the occupations that are doing it. The police are doing it. Mental health is doing it. The medical community.
I'm saying all the power structures are the indoctrination. I'm not saying the kids are doing it. The kids are being mind controlled. The kids are being born to, it's all being thrust upon them. That's not the true nature of that soul.
By the so-called professionals is what I'm saying. And then what happens?
I hope, like, it's obvious, that's what I mean. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I want the attention to focus on the adults doing it, because I can't figure out why these teachers and librarians haven't been charged for sexualizing children. Why have they not been charged? That would get rid of a lot of it once they started seeing charges go out. So they're all complicit in their ignorance and their refusal to do anything about it. So why are we paying these salaries? I want to see the old structure fall. So that's why I'm putting the focus where it belongs. It is falling. It's falling, right? So you know what I came up with the one day? Sexual drive. So I have read books by Therese Benedict, Psychosexual Functions in Women. That sexual drive is instinctual. It's not intellectual. The education is making it intellectual, that you have to think about what gender you are. So this is, let me just find her. So what she says in this, the instinctual drive may present obstacles to the integration of sexual maturity. Fixations on pregenital patterns of gratification may absorb sexual energy. Anxiety produced by pregenital conflicts may deflect this energy and force it into infantile channels. Psychosexual energy may be completely or partially spent in intra-psychic processes. So then she goes on to say that the sexual drive basically is the axis that the personality develops around. So you have to be male or female for procreation. Like she knew this back in the 50s. She worked with Freud. She has, I got a little diary of hers. She said Freud was a fraud. So Freud gets made famous and you don't hear about her. So there's a lot of things that we can look at what's wrong. I don't look at what's wrong just because I want to see what's wrong. I look at it to see what's wrong and then look at what we need to do to get it right. So by making references to some of these people's work, we can get that out hopefully to the parents and say, no, this is how this works. Right? Like this is what I'm starting to see, what I want to start seeing happening. But to do that, we have to see the structures for what they are that aren't working. and then go towards the ones that are, right?
Yeah, that's
And
why
that,
homeschooling, and I mean, I checked out a long time ago of schools and systems, and never I just
totally.
we
So what
we
I
had
like,
it different in our generation, but it's like, so the kids have to, and the parents, have to stand up, and I think a lot of advanced souls, that will refuse the indoctrination. And because the thing is, they're rebelling from a programming from the generation before. And also, there's many different levels of what happened in generations before. You had the hippie movement, you also had the baby boomers, and you also had the feminism, and you also had men wanting to be more like women wanting to be more like, men. And it's just like,
totally. It's all
in the
inverted.
societal structure, we can't really heal. What we have to do is shut off the devices and the TVs and what the school systems and medical industries and all these power structures are saying, and come together as communities and look towards each other, when our kids are born, and just live close to nature and watch that soul develop with a lot less interaction with that kind of world as best as we can. We don't want to shelter them. It doesn't have to, and it's nothing about like any kind of cult or like commune or like this or that. It's just like, just to get away from it, and just to have a healthy way to like begin to work with it. When you develop and mature yourself enough to know your soul, know your truth, know how to be yourself, know how to be with parents and teachers that are supporting and guiding you to be yourself. And then when you enter the world of technology, you've got a strong foundation within yourself to not be sucked into all the things that they're constantly throwing at our faces. Like in social media, all the influencers, all the plastic surgeries and lip injections, or, the transgenderism just like being pushed into place. These are the trends that people are following, which is not coming from an authentic soul. And if we're not developing our soul development to figure out how to love the body we are born in, how to accept it, how to change the stereotypes and the programs through feeling a comfort in it, that's the challenge of being soul-centered versus battling, like we were talking about, the societal programs, to the point where surgery is going to solve it, or becoming a different identity that is a programming on top of a programming. I'm not saying that like those that make that choice, there's anything wrong with it, but like, wait till you've had enough life experience, wait until you've been able to search your soul and ask yourself, what are you answering to? Are you afraid to express your inner feminine in a male body? Are you afraid to express your inner masculine in a female body? It's like,
so
we know that there's same sex.
Why don't we start
So
asking
nobody
why don't we start asking the teachers where their soul is? What do they like about being a woman?
and they should not be like hired, and like there's no greater authority that is monitoring this, right? So the parents have to be the greater authority. Communities have to come together.
So
And
you
the
know
thing
why
is,
I'm
it's like,
saying that, right?
whether a person is interested in same-sex relationships, that's beautiful, that's great. Love is love. But the world of appearances, where it's just because you're attracted to an appearance, we're not living on a soul level at all. Where people are soul centered. It's just very like in the superficial world of appearances, that where the indoctrination gets people the most. Absolutely. These teachers, these doctors, these people that, it's like, go to class with your kid, go to the auditorium, see what they're doing. If you want to pull your kid out, pull your kid out, instead of battling the system. If it's going to be stubborn and start to, fine you if you protest, just pull them out. Even if that means you have to lose your career. I raised 2 kids. I left so many things. I lived out of a vehicle, but you know what? We're abundant. We don't have to answer to a system to get a paycheck. Just drop that survival energy. Have a greater faith in that if you choose integrity, if you choose what's right for your children, and you are courageous and strong, that the universe will support you with synchronicities and help you find soul family and community and a different path other than this insanity. We have to starve it. We can either fight it, but okay, like you said, people are getting fined, people are getting dragged away, people are being pulled away. So it's just like, we have to just exit the matrix right now.
Right. But the only reason I'm bringing this up, because when we can see and articulate how it is dysfunctional, any parents watching this, they can get a better grasp on how to communicate it, because a lot of the parents can't even communicate it. They don't understand it. And that's why it's important that we show the ugliness of it and also show the beauty. You know, what's really interesting, a lot of people I work with, they maybe experienced some really bad experiences in childhood. Some of them didn't even have their soul in them. And one of them, I measured her soul through muscle testing, and I said, 30% of your soul's in your body. And she goes, oh, good. I'm thinking, when is 30% good, right? So we went in and asked where her soul was, brought the fragments back and got her up to about 60, 65%. And I said, can I ask you about your answer at 30%? And I said, why did you think that was good? 30% is enough. And she goes, my soul, one time I only had 15% in my body. I almost died. So some people don't know how to go back and get their soul too. So we're talking about a whole range, because people are at so many different levels of personal growth right now. Some don't even know what they're going in and looking for. If you're going to go to a traditional therapist, you might want to consider that and find somebody who's more centered as yourself, right? That you already centered, myself, that we're centered, that we know what to go in and look for. So do you know who Dr. Ramani is?
I don't think so.
She's got a YouTube channel. She talks about narcissistic abuse. And I just watched one. I watch a lot of her videos. I'm learning so much about this. And she said the clinical psychologists, over half of them don't believe that narcissism exists, or that abuse is intentional. So she goes, so the victim goes to this therapist. The therapist says, well, what did you do to bring this on? so they're discrediting themselves in some ways. I think the world of her. She's got to be one of the most in tune therapists I've ever seen. Her, Gabor Mate, and those are probably the only two I can name. But my point is, so they're starting to like disseminate their own industries, and I think this is going to be really good. So then people realize, if you've been with a narcissist, and she goes through and describes all the narcissistic behaviors by what they do. But when we realize, and that's what I'm talking, the empaths and the narcissists, there's more narcissists out here than we think. And I view them as they are not connected to heart and soul. They will do anything to get ahead. They will hurt you, turn a blind eye. And she's gone through and named, although she's putting on a course, she said soon. I think I'm going to look at it and see about taking it.
Well, they know how to charm, and that's incredible. That's really cool. Sorry, I didn't mean it.
I think it's amazing that people are coming out and criticizing their own industry. Who's the other one? Miriam Grossman said the same thing. She's disgusted with the mental health psychiatrists and psychologists, but let them police their own. You'll see which good ones will come out of their own industries, is what I'm hoping is going to happen. Well, we keep moving on like you're talking about.
Well, that's why I love astrology, because it goes beyond just, okay, here's what I learned in psychology class. You know, it's not a one size fits all. What are the patternings? What are, you know, what's really going on? Like, let's look at the bigger picture, you know, who you are as a unique soul, you know, what it was like, you know, in this particular incarnation with your particular family. And, you know, the narcissism thing, it's just amazing, because it's like, when you know how to just kind of take advantage of an open-hearted, sensitive person who, you know, is seeing the good in people, and you're able to kind of leverage that and charm them and work your way in, and then all of a sudden that's when that narcissism and all the damage starts to like happen. Because if you're not transparent to your own wounds and traumas, you're going to act them out. You're going to act them out in ways that hold, like, you know, a facade, in order for nobody to see how wounded and damaged you actually are. So a narcissist is actually more insecure and more damaged and more traumatized than they will ever admit to. And they go for the ones that are more,
they go for the empaths,
like, willing to be vulnerable and be empathic, and sort of be wanting to, like, you know, see the good in people, or to heal and fix things. And it's just, yeah, I work with a lot of clients like that, and I've been in those kind of partnerships, and those are the worst, because those are the worst. So
I know. So what's really good about this, now, I'm not saying I agree with everything she says. It's just my opinion. It's not that I'm right and she's wrong. I don't agree with her. They know exactly what they're doing. They're calculating. So they know exactly what. And I don't believe all of them were hurt. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe that 40% of victims who are hurt reoffend. I don't believe any of the statistics. But if we find out what the behaviors are,
there's some sort of major fracturing at some stage in the game, whether it's not necessarily it's such negative inflated ego that is so out of control that it's an entity all of on its own. But it originated somewhere. But it could just be like a complete, it's like another species of human. But yeah, there's many different levels, and you know a lot about this, so keep going. Yeah.
So it's interesting, because I've been talking to a few girls lately, and they're going through just different things in their marriages or whatever, and they're realizing that they're married to narcissists. But when I ask them questions, I asked them, did they cause abuse? And I know them both very well. Neither one of them caused abuse. They didn't abuse anybody. So I believe it's a choice as well. And if we're going to grow up and mature emotionally, we have to start looking at it. So
Yeah.
even though people have been hurt, they looked at their wounds, exactly what you're describing.
An excuse.
They healed themselves,
Yeah.
and then they move forward. That's what we're supposed to do, right? But
But
it's
that
just,
doesn't mean, yeah,
so not everybody who's been hurt somebody. And I think these are just the
of course not. I
programs. I think these are the programs that they want us to believe when they say hurt people, and things along that line, the cliches, that they want us to believe that, so that we don't blame anybody, hold anybody accountable. And I think as we're moving
oh
into this
no.
new era, we are going to hold people accountable. That's what I think,
Yeah.
because we're going to see what's truth or not. We're going to see what's real or
We
not. We're
need,
going to see people's intentions.
who isn't wounded though? I mean, everybody's wounded. You're either like holding yourself like accountable, you're learning the soul lessons, you're not like necessarily gonna like be like, oh, law of attraction, I guess it's my karma, I deserved it, because that doesn't work. It's not a one size fits all. There's no philosophy that should be cast upon everybody. Everybody's different, everybody's got their own story, and the reasons behind it is very sacred to that individual. So when people try and define it for them, it's kind of ridiculous. The narcissists I knew were coming from very dysfunctional families where, you know, their father would not allow them to share emotion. They were very neglected, but they were rewarded for their sort of ego accomplishments that were based in like, you're a winner and you get this and you get that, and this is how, you know, and let's not respect the mother, let's not, the, you know, and it's multi-generational in a lot of ways, and it's a programming. But I think the deeper wound in that we all carry is, you know, separation from the mother, all these inversions that have been passed down generation to generation in the guise of religion, in the guise of, you know, this is just how my family was. Even if they weren't religious, it doesn't matter. It's societal. It's also, yeah, just a lot of traumas that we bring in, you know, from, you know, previous lifetimes. And just the anger of not having any real space held. Like you said, the psychiatrists and the doctors, you know, if you're just going to medicate somebody or give them a pharmaceutical or give them a diagnosis, we don't realize that all these conditions like bipolar or narcissism or anxiety disorder or constant PTSD or ADD, you know, what is the root? These doctors are not looking at the root of it. They're based in all these multi-generational programs and what kind of family you were born into, what sort of, you know, and it's a mixed bag. Some might be Illuminati family. Some might just be, you know, their parents were connected to like some, you know, religion or abuse or poverty or, you know, and it's not a one size fits all. So that the whole Black Lives Matter feminist movement is not allowing the men to heal because it's saying that they're all at fault. So, you know, everybody has something to heal. So let's hold space for everybody's wounds, because the more that we, you know, praise some victims as being more victims than others, and we have to all placate them and all their triggers.
We don't do that.
You know, that doesn't work. So why don't we all admit that we're wounded? We've all gone through certain traumas, and let's just address the human soul within that body and not look at the outer shell to determine how that belief and how you function in society should, you know, be representative of that. And I think the narcissism is sort of emerging from how much we are not truly like healing and doing soul work, and
some of them are never going to.
This topic, I love that you cover these kind of things.
So
we can go on and on. Like do so many shows on this. Sorry,
there are so many good things that come out of this conversation because we're seeing what we no longer will tolerate, which helps us with our boundaries as well. This is the card I pulled today. The Mother Prays. So exactly what we're talking about, understanding our feminine energy for what we describe it as for ourselves, but getting back in touch with it. And it's just that mother energy, mother creators over top of us all the time watching us. So we can connect to that energy as well as a feminine guide and ask for help through her energy from the higher cosmos is where I was going with that. But yeah, going back to the narcissism. So everything for me is over or under energy, or it's 0 point and balanced. So some people take on other people's stuff. They're under energy, and some people push too hard. But we got to show the ones who are under energy how to come back and claim their energy, and let the ones who are pushing the energy back themselves off with the self-entitlement, right? So that's what I see. That's what I see with the narcissism. One goes out and hurts, and one goes in and hurts. Often the empath will take the hit herself or himself because they don't want to put it on anybody else. So it's almost like they're under energy. They take it. So we can show the empaths how to strengthen themselves as well. I totally agree, because we are in a 3D body. We still have to function in these bodies. But when you're talking about Mother Earth, I was talking to Patty Greer there, and I watched a video. I can't remember if it was you and her and who else it was, but she was saying the crop circles are coming out from the earth. And she said for the longest time, they put her in the UFO movement, thinking it was in the sky. And I think they did that just to throw her off. So we're a lot of this, just by being curious, we're awakening and starting to see how this stuff, how it really works, right? And we're looking at all the inversions, so we can look outside, because we still have to connect consciously to the earth and the energies around us. We have to find the man-made electromagnetic frequencies and be able to tune them out and be able how to go in and find with our consciousness the earth energies. That's what I see is happening right now. A lot of people are really waking up to synchronicities, as you were describing earlier. So do you know what electro culture is? Where you take a stick and wrap it with copper, and people are saying they're getting bigger yields in their gardens. So there's a group of us girls, we hang out, and we decided we were going to do this. And we had some crystals, and my one friend says, I wish I knew how to wire these crystals onto this stick. Well, the next day I had a friend come over and we did some of the clearing, and I invited her along. Guess what she does? She makes crystal jewelry for a living. So she sat there for 2 hours showing us how to wrap the crystals for the stick. Like, it's just, so she asked for it the day before, and then it happened. It's pretty funny. So exactly what you're saying. This is how we're supposed to be using our higher minds and our higher consciousness. But so many people don't even know it exists, right? That's the big problem. I was down doing a show. This was a couple of years ago. I was doing a spirituality and metaphysics show, and I had a helper that day because I was doing clearings. And this guy kept walking by in front of the booth. He was a big guy. And she goes, he really wants to talk to you. So when I finished with the person I was working with, I went over and he told me a story that he got out of jail. He goes, people in jail don't even know this stuff exists. He was put in jail at 12 because he did his first armed robbery. His parents couldn't afford to keep him, so they let him stay with the neighbor. He overheard the neighbor say they couldn't afford to keep him. So he went out and robbed a store to give him money so they could feed him. And he feels so much shame about that. So we've got so much work. So many people are at so many different levels, but it's okay to, and he goes, I'm bad. And I said, no, you're not. You were 12 years old. Like, take the shame off. So we can help people unpack some of the beliefs that they have about themselves, because if they've been through a dysfunctional situation, they won't even know who they are, what's true or not, what they're responsible for, what they're not responsible for. And all of this, I'm sure, comes out with the work you're doing as well. That you go in and you'll find some of these things as you're showing them how to come back up in line, right? But we have to go in and look at the wounds. It's no different when you have a tight spot on your shoulders. You got to rub that spot until you move the energy out. Do you know what I mean by that? Can you unmute your microphone?
Yeah, and that's why pain is such a great teacher in a lot of ways, because when something happens in our body, if there's dis-ease, if there's injury, that's an opportunity to get to know yourself better. What is the root of it? What organ is being impacted? What part of your body is holding that pain? And when you begin to speak to it, when you begin to get close to it, and you begin to understand it, you begin to rehabilitate, regenerate, and repair. And in that repair work, you can go deep into your soul and into a deeper process that helps you to understand, why a certain adversity or life event took place. Because usually it's a wake-up call. There's so many people that say, I'm so grateful that happened to me. It actually really woke me up. And there's other people that give their power away more and more. I mean, I know injury is a little bit different than dis-ease, but when we understand the metaphysical, when we understand the larger picture, when we understand the programmings that the body is not in tune with, that can't thrive within, the mental program, like the brain computer that is informing the body is kind of rejecting and manifests pain or disease because there's blocked energy. And a lot of that blocked energy is hidden gifts and abilities. And sometimes it's internalized traumas. And it's just, the more we can work it out and release it and give it life, write it out, draw it, paint it, come to understand it. The dark night of the soul shows us, the wounds, but also shows us the gifts that have been neglected or projected upon, if a kid's not paying attention in school, like maybe they're bringing in some kind of a download or inventive skill, that should be, looked at. Like, what does this child have to bring to the table, instead of something's wrong with them because they're not complying, they're not consenting to outer authority. So yeah, we
Totally
need to
agree with that.
really.
So this is just for fun. Type C, learned behavior patterns, cancer programs. This is what you have to get rid of. So the first one, I think there's about 19 of them. Cope with stress by being a nice guy, must be courageous at all times, rarely expresses negative emotions, must conquer my fears, afraid of boundaries, unexpressed anger, rarely lose my temper, unassertive, compliant, overly cooperative, and subservient. These are the people who get cancer. That's just one personality type. So being nice means you take on other people's stuff as well. So you can take on, like, if you don't stand up for yourself, you can take on other people's energy because you open your body to it. And a lot of it's learning how to protect your energy. But
a lot of the fourth chakra and that part of the body that, there's a lot of, exactly. Keep going though. Yeah.
So another personality type. So that was just describing one personality. I'm just going to read one more. Do anything for love, taken advantage of, exaggerated self-sacrifice, appease, peace at any price, cope with life, take what comes my way, needs to please, no is a four-letter word, need to be thought caring, need to meet the needs of others. So these are the empaths who do these behaviors. They worry about everybody else. And what I'm trying to put out there is it's really important that the empaths understand you are as important as everybody else. You're not more important. You're unique in your own being, but you are as important, as worthy, as entitled to good things in your life as everybody else. Because I think the meek are going to inherit the earth, and I think they're the empaths.
Oh, totally. And, and it's like, instead of being the absorber, you can be the activator.
Yes.
If you can stand strong in your power, and have boundaries. Because the thing is, when our field is open, we're constantly giving birth, men and women. We're giving birth to ideas and concepts, which is the magician archetype. Like our words create reality. Our thoughts become words. If our thoughts are not our own, then we're enabling the things that we don't want in the future. And we're, kind of siphoned into an artificial timeline because we're not in possession of our own thoughts. Like empaths, that might not be underneath the programming, but they're just open hearted and they're just absorbing and they're just wanting to kind of nurture, fix, and heal everything around them, that they're going to take on more than just themselves within their own system. They have to determine where, there's a little bit of tough love, or, you need to fall down and get back up on your own. I can hold space for you. I can, have a boundary, and know where to, be more of the activator and lead by example and just inspire, others to respect those boundaries and to know, we're, a nurturer and an empath cannot necessarily change. If you have a lot of water signs, you can't, necessarily like change that. But how can you work with the element of water to work with frequency, to work with like essential oils and sound healing in order to help purify that water so that there's a filtration system to remove the contaminants of other people's energy that you might absorb, that changes the frequency of your own body, that ends up being, it can become toxic, and it's not your toxicity. It's like you want to feel it to heal it because you're a nurturer, but like there's a certain point where, everybody has to hold themselves accountable to their own healing process, and more boundaries and more utilizing the voice and commanding, your boundaries and just saying, I can't, there's a limit here. I need to close the door and tend to myself. I need to self nurture so I can be a nurturer. And when, and there's a lot of the guilt, shame, and a lot of like deeply embedded things in the unconscious that we need to shed more light on, because the unconscious, when it's awoken, recognizes the creative imagination and that we're multidimensional and we can more operate from, like a place of not being on autopilot, not just like, all those things. And it's amazing how much you dive deep into like,
Totally.
all this. Everybody's
different
as far as their, yeah.
When one woman I was working with, she was telling me she sees things in other dimensions, and I think hers were orbs. She goes, "Do you see them?" And I said, "Not really." But I said, "But don't knock the fact that you're seeing them. Like that's just your path, the way you're ascending into your higher consciousness. It doesn't. We're not all going to be the same. So just because you see it and somebody else doesn't mean you're crazy. Like it's not. That's not how this works. Just know who you're going to talk to about it. You can't go into your mental health doctor and say you see ghosts or demons, right? Because they're going to put you on drugs right away."
But then there's paranormal shows where, these stories are coming more to life. Just don't go to the, be careful who you choose to be a practitioner or a doctor for you. If it doesn't feel right, you can terminate that agreement. You don't have to be underneath their, authority. So get out as quick as you can. If it's not resonating with you, keep searching, because there are a lot of people that address these things. There's people that deal in the paranormal. There are people that
Totally.
deal with the energy medicine and shamanism and plant medicine. I mean, there's all sorts of other options, sound healing, crystal therapy, that's all there. And so, like you said, and like we've been talking about, some people are so afraid because that's not what they were taught. They might have family members that's, oh, that's woo woo, that's crazy. It's like, just because that's your biological family doesn't mean you have to endure it. There are a lot of the more advanced souls are the ones that are seeing a bigger picture that, yeah, you might have to say goodbye for a while to just preserve your own, soul development and your sovereignty. And even if it means that you're ostracized, you'll find soul family, you'll find more like-minded people, and then maybe they'll come around, maybe they won't, but you don't have to engage in the battle and be destroyed, by what they don't understand. You can still love them though. It's just they're not ready. Like you said, everybody's at a different stage in their development, but you don't have to be bound into it. Some families are harder to leave than others, and it's scary. So when you do, you want to be careful of that survival frequency or that feeling victimized, because the predatory forces and narcissists will also gravitate towards that. So I remember living on the road and having to, just kind of be on my own. When I was in the wrong vibration of how it made me feel, I was a magnet to a lot of dark forces. When I was like, I'm resetting the energy, I'm being true to myself, I'm where I need to be, and I'm abundant, and I changed my perspective, and I changed the words and the inner dialogue of all these self projections coming from outer projections that I took on and absorbed into my being. Once I broke, my association with it, everything changed. I started to manifest miracles and synchronicities and things that actually supported my greater mission and my soul journey. And then a lot of those relationships healed and some didn't. But just know that there's a much bigger picture, and the universe is supporting you on every level to be true to who you are. And these inversions have nothing to do with true source creator, the 0 point unified field. These are all distortions that we have to be brave enough to cut the cords from. And then we're benefiting them, even if they don't validate it, when they have their life review, when they're able to step away from the programming on a larger picture level, they're going to be, so grateful. But don't wait for it.
No.
Just go for it.
Do what you want to do. So, so I think a lot of these organizations are going to have a dark night of their soul on the professional collective level, and some of them are going to fall away because we're not buying into it anymore. If you don't know what you're doing, why are we coming to you? Right? And it's like Crime Stoppers. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't need Crime Stoppers. And what's the other one? And they want victims to come out and say that they've been abused. Well, then why can't you tell? Because everybody is so messed up. So many people are messed up. You can't tell who's been abused or not unless they physically tell you. So stop going to them if they don't know, if they're going to turn around and say intentional narcissism doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So they've lost their credibility. Let them have the dark night of the soul and sort it out for themselves. Maybe they need to switch careers. Maybe they need to be in something else. Maybe we need to get an operator's manual for the human being and look at all of our light bodies, put everything together, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, put it all together and understand how we are connected energetically. While they still play with the allopathic medicine, we can go on and do our own energy work or whatever we're interested in. So we're leaving
and be inspired by the people that have taken that stuff. I work with so many people that used to be doctors or nurses, and then they just gravitated towards alternative therapies or things that and they walked away. And yeah, you might feel the insults or the ridicule, but that's them just wanting to hold you and keep you down. It's like you need to be programmed too, or the person that's the overlord of it all that is wanting to say that you in order to keep your job and have this paycheck. It's like just don't be afraid to walk away. I know that there's a lot of ways to do this, and the more you listen to the stories and the people that had taken those steps, the more encouraged that you'll feel.
Definitely.
And a lot of people feel very isolated and alone, but you don't have to. And then some people are surviving when they went to certain groups or they did reach out, maybe that help didn't help them. So when there's nothing left to fall back on, trust that maybe your life path is saying you can only fall back on yourself. You need to find that crone. You need to go into that underworld. You need to maybe go through that initiation to realize that if everything's betraying you, even the help outside of the system, outside of the job, outside of the career, outside of whether it was supposed to be in service to humanity, but it's actually been compromised, and you seek help and that help didn't help you, or your friends weren't really your friends. Maybe there's a period that you need to just step away and know that we all have to somehow embrace falling back on ourselves with no one that's going to show up. But you know what? Mother Nature
Totally.
shows up, animals show up, spirit shows up. And that's something that sometimes we have to be willing to, you know, connect with in order to be strong enough in ourselves to draw the right people to us. If we're constantly seeking something outside of ourselves without falling back on ourselves and going through that death, rebirth, alchemical shift, and finding that inner crone that holds the lantern of wisdom in the dark, is able to walk that labyrinth, is able to cultivate wisdom in the dark and not feel lost and in fear of death and in fear of what others think, you know, that's a powerful initiation that, you know, maybe life is asking you to begin to, you know, embrace. You know, if everybody's failing you, if the system's failing you, your friends and your
So,
family, you know,
okay.
that everybody might have to face that period, and some maybe don't, and they do run into the right kind of help. But you know, we have to be so discerning, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Don't be afraid to, you know, just like in relationship, if you've been damaged or wounded and you feel like you're falling in love with somebody and they can't accept you unpacking some of those traumas, and they're like rolling their eyes and they're just like, oh, you're too sensitive, or why are you in so much fear? Maybe that's not the right person for you, or maybe it's not time to have a relationship, you know?
So can we
Anyway,
talk
we all
about,
have to come together and support each other way more.
so let's talk about Dr. Ramani. So I'm big on going inward and listening and seeing how information I get, how it applies to me. But I also look at the macro as well. So she's talking about narcissist family of origin. And she said, if you had one or more narcissist parents, chances are you're going to be attracted to a narcissist. And she talked about narcissist siblings. And she said, if you've got one or more, and you're basically going to be the black sheep, that sometimes you have to leave them. So she talks about her being in a narcissistic family. And when she goes to family functions, she goes, I just have to leave because somebody will do something and put their claws out or whatever, right? So she just gets up and leaves. But the point is, just because everybody in your life, nobody's supporting you, you might be the only one in your circle who's leaving, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means you woke up. If they can't support you, they can't support you. But you don't go telling them everything you're doing, because they're going to be ridiculing you behind your back to do exactly what you said to get you back in. People hate it when you set boundaries and start changing, because now they've got to change because you've changed. So the idea is know when to show people the new you, know when to stay in the normie old. If you're around certain people can't handle it, don't talk about it. So, but trust yourself, exactly what you're saying, right? We're just using different words around it, but trust yourself to use your discernment to know who can handle it and who can't. You know, it's funny, when I first started, this was a number of years ago, and I started waking up, what I found when I was on my computer doing things, or if I was working with clients here or just associates, planes would just fly over my head, over my house. Like they would just nose dive the house, is what it sounded like. And I had a friend here one time, and she said, I said, do you hear all those planes? That's like 3 of them in 5 minutes. So I asked it as a question, so they didn't say they didn't hear it. She goes, just put a grassy knoll over your house. Imagine there's 3 feet of soil, and you're one with the dirt, you're one with the worms, and you're one with the stones, and there's grass on top of it billowing, and nobody can see you. That worked for about 3 weeks until they caught on to that frequency. So then I had to come up with be one with the table. And after they caught on to that one with the tree outside. So we can really move our consciousness around. Everybody's got different gifts. But if people aren't understanding yours, try to find the people, put it out there that show me the people who will understand this and I can work with. And you'll get a synchronicity, hopefully, and then all of a sudden something will land in your lap, like this woman who was wrapping the crystals for us. Like that was within 24 hours that she got what she wanted. We just laughed. It was just funny. This is how it's supposed to work for us when we use our original hard drive, instead of all the electronics and being caught with all the little gadgets, because that's somebody else's creation that you're looking at. We're supposed to be making our own creations. So I know we've called this Rise Above the Battle of the Sexes, but what I really like about what you and I did, we're showing everybody how to do it. We're not saying men or women, but we have to stop looking at each other like this and criticizing each other for men need to do this or women need to do this. That is done. So people grow, but they grow in their own way. They grow into what interests them. They grow into what excites them. They grow into what they are called to do. But the idea is pitting men and women against each other. That's just government so that they can keep women away from, or men away from the women. Single moms are easy to control. They give them money. They keep them on welfare, whatever. So people do benefit by controlling the breeders, right? The women. So we have to understand that it's not the men or the women. It's the structure we're in.
Yeah,
Top
exactly.
down.
It's just the program.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, yeah, I mean, some women, you know, might, you know, attract a man who's going to be a stay-at-home father. Or some, you know, are going to attract somebody that they realize is expecting them to be a certain way. And if it doesn't resonate, you got to walk away. If you can't consciously together and on a mature level heal together, and that person's not on board with that healing path, it's like, you're going to attract what works for you. And it doesn't need to be defined by anything outside of you. There's all sorts of scenarios that just work for people. And if it makes you happy and you're thriving, it's like you can explore all different aspects of yourself, your inner masculine and feminine, and you can play whatever role that you decide to define for yourself, not what the outer society defines for you. And you'll attract, what you need to on a soul level to find that inner balance, to begin to switch on what's been dormant. You don't have to be locked into the relationships that are the same sort of patterning that you were modeled to when you were growing up. But sometimes you do in order to break it once and for all. You visit a relationship that has the same kind of dynamics, so you can be like, I'm cutting the cords, I'm breaking that ancestral patterning. That's why I attracted it to myself. I don't have to stay stuck in it. I don't have to answer to it. So, anger and rage and all our emotions, we got to take seriously. We got to give it respect. We got to listen to it, write it out, have a dialogue with it, because anger is passion. Depression is a soul longing that's not being answered to. Well, what is it trying to tell you? What are you longing for? What is the confusion in your mind? Are you battling or confused about the programmings that don't resonate with your own truth, your own higher mind? So dialogue with yourself more, get to know yourself more, embrace your creative expression so that you can, not internalize everything, and you can begin to just learn more about yourself. People be so surprised what comes out of their mouth when they begin to write about it and they begin to have an open forum to talk. A lot of people I work with who have thyroid issues or, throat chakra issues that have just been silenced or shut up all their lives. It's like, boom, it's like,
Totally.
like you said, find people that can hold space. And if you can't find anybody, the synchronicities aren't there. The synchronicity is for you to maybe find yourself. But there are people out there, and if you don't feel like there's something right and you can't raise your hand and say, this doesn't feel right to me, and they're shutting you down, walk away, because you should be around no authority that's controlling you and limiting you, because the whole world of guru and this hierarchy and this answer to a leader kind of crap is done.
Yes. I was going to say, just you reminded me of something there, the difference between familiar and normal. Some people, my guess is about 80% of families, since we've been raised in a dysfunctional society, about 80% of families have some form of dysfunction. No judgment. It doesn't matter how much. But if something doesn't feel right and you realize that you think it is normal, because you were raised in dysfunction doesn't mean it's normal, it's familiar. So ask yourself, is this normal that this is happening? Is this normal? Is this normal that happened? And don't do it from a place of judgment, because nothing good is going to come out of that, right? And you definitely don't tell the person if they did something to you when you were younger and you didn't know it was right or wrong. Then see it for what it is now, so you can free yourself. So it's not about going into confrontation with each other and saying you did this, because we've got he said, she said, we've got she said, all of these things, but those things are done. So just look at it. Was this normal? What I learned in school, is that normal? Look at all the things we learned in school. That's even a better example. There's a lot of things we learned in this education system, the public education system, that simply isn't true. Right? So there's a good place to start, because it won't be as emotional. Ask to be shown true. What's the truth about how the water works on Earth? What are the aquifers in the underground lakes? So start asking just different questions, and just find a topic and start looking, whether on the internet or whether you've got access to old books, but just start asking questions, and you find your natural curiosity. It's going to stretch into other areas in your life as well. Right? So there's all kinds of different ways to do this. So, but again, rising above the battle of the sexes, I really wanted to have this conversation, because we need to know that fighting with each other, it's just another war that somebody else is going to make money.
And we see this everywhere, even in the disclosure community, and just everywhere. It's just, it's just the negative ego, or I'm right and you're wrong, and this way or that way. And what really, really helped me is, I was born in England, but I was raised in the States, later on. But when I left DC area, I was in high school outside of DC, I wasn't into the school systems, and luckily, and not luckily, I had a broken heart, and everything just wasn't making any sense. And I just kind of moved myself away. I went into wilderness expedition leadership, and I just went out into the wilderness and studied how, or just, well, not studied, but put myself in those kind of challenges of you being in small groups and traveling in the wilderness. You're with men and women, and you got nothing around you but nature. to help you to be an honest soul with each other, because you'd really create an instant thing if you were operating under a parental programming, a societal programming. You wouldn't do very well, because nature would be there to teach you. You might have a confrontation with like something like in nature or an experience that day that you would have to unpack later to process with the group. So it was like one of the most amazing things for me, because I'm like, this is where it's at, because we're being informed by the natural world. We're being held
Yes.
space by the great
Connected.
mother. And everybody's able to cry or like, be vulnerable, because you don't have some device or television or thing. You only have each other to survive. So I'm not saying like, for a person to get away from it all, but I think, if you are worried about your children, there are so many good programs and wilderness courses that are, not going to put them in harm's way, they're not very expensive, that can just pull them out so that they can discover themselves and begin to unpack the ancestral patternings, the societal programs, the indoctrination, because, really, this is the unconditional love of the mother. The mother is the great healer, and it's not separate from the father, but there's something extraordinary about this Mother Earth, Mother Nature, and it's encoded in the planetary grid network that the masculine and feminine are in integration, and hierogamic union, and waking that up within ourselves is encoded in our DNA. Yes. And the reason they want us out of balance is because archons and entities feed off of imbalance, and they can siphon and harvest our energy. This is what keeps it in power. So all the psyops and all the things that are being cast upon us is so that we're always out of balance, and they don't care where it's coming from. That's why it infiltrates everything. The new age community, religions, medical industry, educational industry. They don't care what it is that's going to throw you off balance. As long as we're out of balance, like you said, we're vulnerable for them to begin to hook in, and for us to give our power away, and enough already, right?
Enough already. I love that. And this is the way, this is going to be the new earth for us. Once we start to see, ask to be shown what's wrong with whatever's out there, not for the purpose of focusing on it, but to see it so that you can say, that doesn't make sense. That never made sense to me. And it's no difference if you get into a relationship and then later something doesn't work out, but you had intuition or a nagging feeling and you didn't trust yourself. This is what you're coming back to with everything in life, including yourself. And this is part of the ascension. And we were talking about the energies. I'm really excited and really pumped with the new energies coming in, because I can feel myself waking up. I'm grounding all the time. Like I feel like I could just fly right out the top of the house, right? So grounding all the time, but you're picking up, but it's making us more aware. So Laura, to finish, can I ask you for something? Can you tell us a bit about the planets and what's going on right now and we can expect for the next month?
Yeah, no, I love all that. And, the thing is, like, we're divorcing ourselves from the old paradigm and the inverted matrix. And it's like the false parent. It's an abusive, deceptive system, right? Just like we would in our own personal relationships. We got to not hand our self-worth over to something else. We need to redefine our self-worth on our own terms, and not have, because the narcissist empath is also the system, and totally. Us as humans dealing, so this is how we break it. We have to work it out on a micro level, and know, if something doesn't feel right, if you're being undermined, if you're being belittled, it's like nobody deserves that. It's like, so it takes a lot within us. So the planetary energies right now are pretty intense. We have the Jupiter square, which perfects on May 17th, which actually is tomorrow. And, that has a lot to do with unpacking belief systems, right? Letting go of things from the past that are like holding us into like, a sort of tradition or a belief system that we might not feel we want to move on from. And it's been a week of like this, this square going on, this triangle of energy of squares between Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto. So people might feel like a lot is coming up to the surface. Pluto's in Aquarius, Mars is moving into Leo, and Jupiter in Taurus. It's just like very much about like, purging out like, where we've defined our self-worth based in belief systems that are outside of us. This is a big time of clearing. Then we enter a new moon on Friday, in Taurus, and it's a really amazing time for seed planting. Then a lot of harmonious aspects will be coming in, you know, and Mercury and Saturn are working well together. So the magician energy who can create reality can ground it and begin to like build a root system and a foundation to just, you know, notice that you can, you know, manifest your dreams and visions and clear yourself of belief systems and things that are hooking into you and wanting you to enable or birth a reality that like is for them or for something else that you might really not resonate with. So use that plutonic energy to just clear, you know, redirect, you know, wherever that rage or anger is coming up, because you know something feels wrong, and channel it into something creative, into taking action for a solution, you know, that you feel inspired to begin to connect with, you know, so you're not struggling in that battle. You know, battle with the sexes is also battling the system. It's like, where can we like redirect our energies? So we got that new moon, we got this like, you know, this, you know, square, and squares are all about like friction and conflict. They're all in fixed signs. So, you know, where are you hitting walls and obstacles? Look at those as opportunities to, you know, be that spiritual athlete and warrior to, you know, like overcome it and face it once and for all, and knock it down and expand. You know, Saturn's in Pisces now. So the access to the creative imagination that is going to be grounded back into structure. How can that structure allow you to hold your multidimensional awareness and creative imagination instead of the structure repressing it and limiting you with all these fear tactics and all this compliancy and tyranny? You know, we have to evolve and recognize the higher octaves of Saturn is self-mastery, being more in command of what you create through your words, through your thoughts. Make sure your thoughts are your own. If you don't like the thoughts, you don't like the things coming at you, you know, have a boundary, because we're birthing all the time, men and women. We have the inner masculine and feminine. We have to be conscious in every moment. So this new moon on Friday is really important to just, you know, be still and silent with yourself, and just really like, you know, work out
And
what doesn't
seeds.
serve you, what you need to release, and begin to really invite in what you'd like to manifest and create. And then you'll begin to be able to take action. Mars and Leo, very creative, you know, just like, let's like take some action. Pluto being in retrograde is helping with a lot of the introspection. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to share. I do newsletters. My website's
Okay.
cosmicguide.org. We do one-on-one mini readings for people. We can look at your own personal chart, and I do astro reports, and then I gather people so we can, you know, just kind of look at it all together. I hope that was a
Okay.
good assessment right now, but a lot of
Totally.
what happened in 2020 we're revisiting, as far as, you know, we're in a big initiation of facing death and but rebirth, you know, and this
Yes.
shift of consciousness and this awakening, right? All these different tactics to stunt our growth and to kind of hold us
Keep us
into something
down.
where we're not able to emerge, you know, is what we need to release ourselves from, so that we can complete this initiation and move into the Pluto Aquarian energy of like, I'm now sovereign, I'm empowered, I'm strong, I'm soul-centered, I'm connected to nature and Mother Earth, and that is the great healer. And the ether energy is purifying us in the breath, you know, the breath of life, and all these different alignments are always supporting us. But the
Totally.
system who understands the occult and understands these things are weaponizing it through psyops in order to trip us up, so that we're not moving through what
So we
the
don't see
greater
what's true.
cosmic
So we play the,
intelligence, Mother
yes.
Earth intelligence, just, you know, what is actually available. So cut yourself off from the thing that's not working, and hold space for yourself so that you can breathe into this circulation of energy that is really like, nature is encoded and your DNA is encoded with you becoming an advanced conscious awakened human to restore
Totally.
our tree of life divine template. The inverted system is wanting the duality, wanting the imbalance, so that it can feed on us in order to create these artificial timelines and completely disempower us. So
Totally.
we have choices in every moment.
And we do. And for some people, I know everybody's at a different level of the clearing and what they're doing and getting in touch with themselves and aligning consciously. Maybe you've done a lot of inner work, but you have a dream or something you want. You want waterways cleaned up, and you want to put that image out there. You want the pollution gone. You want the skies to be clear. Put it out there as well while you're doing your inner work. Maybe you want to create a hobby farm that helps distressed horses. Put something positive out there that you want to create for yourself. So even though you're going inside, you're going to still be creating, manifesting in the physical world. So it's okay to do that, to know that too. And it's okay if you do both. What if one day you're working inside and then you have a great idea, and the next day you're wanting to see all the corruption gone. You want to see true systems. You want to see fair systems. You can have dreams like that as well, providing you're also clearing and doing your inner work. You can't do spiritual bypass by ignoring yourself. by focusing on the outside, but maybe you've done enough work and you're honest enough with yourself that you can start creating these things. Things are starting to happen. We're seeing so much starting to happen, so much good happening as the old falls. So use your imagination and come up with something that you really want to do and start dreaming about that. So that still is in alignment with what you're saying about all the planetary action as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and you know, the more we can just kind of feel into it, we don't have to know exactly what's going on with the planets, but it's helpful if you feel like you're kind of on autopilot and you're just kind of like you're in confusion, or you just don't know why, you're just, not, it just kind of helps. If you're feeling just a surge of like, anger, it's nice to know, kind of what's happening, because it is a very, very explosive time of these kind of energies, and that's kind of resettling itself as, it's a time of purging and clearing, and like, the rage is like a release, but you want to direct it away from like, directing it at somebody, like we were talking about this blame, shame, victim game, where it's like somebody else's fault or something outside of you, just release it, because it just doesn't serve you. You don't have to engage in it. You don't have to try and convince it. You don't have to battle it, but just release it. Let the volcano blow, find your space, clear it out, recenter, ground, and make sure that you have conscious thoughts and words. And then when you take action, you'll see that you're manifesting something and you're co-creating a future for yourself that's way better than the one that you're constantly being like hooked into, or you're being engaged in the battle of, to be free of it, to the point where it's draining you. Give yourself some time, some sacred space to understand yourself more, and all sorts of great ways to do that.
And anger is another one of those emotions. Anger might tell you need to set boundaries with somebody, and that could be in your immediate vicinity, or that could be in the macro.
Yeah, and write it out. Make sure you're clear. Yeah.
So ask it what it's telling you. It's okay. Ask it what it's telling you. You can write out your answers. It doesn't matter. But the idea is that you're addressing it. You're going in consciously. So, we've been about an hour, so I think that's probably pretty good. But I was going to ask you, Laura, can you tell everybody where we can find you? I'm going to put your link on in the description box. I'm sorry.
Yes. So, So cosmicgaia.org. And you can subscribe, and I do one-on-one sessions, and I do Zoom calls, and I do podcasts, and I do astro reports. And then the events that I'm doing are there, and the platforms that I post interviews that are that I can actually talk.
Yes. Exactly.
So I got some material just for the subscribers, and a lot of free material on BitChute and Rumble. You can find that all on my website.
Perfect. And I'm going to put my information in the description box as well, so people can go in and have a look. I'm not sure where this is going to make it, if it's going to make it to YT this time because of certain words that were said, but it doesn't matter. So it'll be on BitChute for sure.
Yeah, so, and I'd love to just have you on my channels, and I just love getting into these kind of conversations with you. It's just like, wow. Thank you for having me. And it's really good. It's always a pleasure. And it's really good because we're talking about things that are comfortable, but we're not losing it. We're not letting it affect us. We're just addressing it for the sake of its information. And the idea down the road is that you don't let anything trigger you. You just look at it, and then off we go to what we do want to do, and we do want to create. So love having you, Laura. So I don't know, but maybe I'll give you a shout next month. I know you're really busy. You got a lot of things coming up. I saw on your social media, you're doing a lot of traveling. Yeah, but not until August. So I've got a couple months. Okay, yeah. Sounds good. So I'll be in touch maybe next month. I look forward to next time. Yes, me too. That'd be wonderful. Okay, take care, everybody. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, bye.